after the 2020 election, most of us realized something really bad happened. Of course, the evidence is all coming out now. We were right. But
you mean it wasn't the most secure election in history?
Go figure.
I mean, can you believe?
You got to find out who made that statement, right? What's their motivation behind that statement, right? Don't look behind the mirror, the curtain, right?
Don't
Wizard of Oz.
Don't even question. Don't you dare question.
That's right.
Yeah.
So 2020 happens, and so that was in November. So we just get on the phone. My partner and I, we start saying, okay, what just happened here? This is not good.
Right.
And I call it divine intervention from God. We get connected to several people. One very prominent person we got connected with was Mike Ferris, who was at that time was CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom. And he came to our offices. He had not traveled for a year because his wife had been really sick. But he got word that we were going to try to do something. I don't even know how. I guess things came through another friend. But so Mike comes to our office, and we're saying, Mike, what's going on? That was in February. In December, we met with Senator Rand Paul at Mar-a-Lago at an event there. And to his credit, Senator Paul, whether you like him or not, he told us the truth of what was happening.
Which was?
It was the corruption was so deep in Washington that it's not going to get fixed in Washington. We got to start from the bottom up and totally rebuild the country. And he described, I'll put it to you this way, he said, the reason we got the problem is we don't have term limits, number one, and number two, it's the best job these people have ever had. And I specifically asked him, I have pictures of me talking to him. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, Steve, I could leave here today and go back to Kentucky, and I could become a doctor and feed my family. Most of these people couldn't get a job as a janitor, yet they're becoming very wealthy. And I'll leave it at that. So we put two and two together. The corruption, now we know. USAID, dollars kicked back and all that kind of stuff. So the point was we began looking at this, and then we began doing research in our own local county. We're a very conservative county between Tampa and Orlando. Great sheriff, Grady Judd. And all of a sudden, we did some homework there. We found like 29 NGOs in our county, being funded by bad people. And so, long story short, Lara, we saw that the enemy had crept into the school system. They had crept into our agencies at the local level. And so then the question, entrepreneur, okay, I got to build a product.
Yeah.
Okay, what does the average citizen need to push back? And so I use the example of the ACLU going after our school boards across the country and pushing Title IX. That Johnny gets to play, Sally's sports and go to Sally's bathroom. You get two or three ACLU attorneys, right, at a school board. Now think about this. The school board is normally part-time, right? They didn't sign up for this. They're worried about curriculum and things like that. So they didn't sign up. All of a sudden, they're there. The school board attorney's job is to keep the school board out of a lawsuit. So they just give a little ground. Yeah. This time, a little ground. Then you got a mom or a dad with 3 minutes and a microphone opposing it. And that was it.
It's amazing.
There was no pastor there. There was no, right?
When you're allowed. You're allowed to.
So the question, you're right. Yeah, when you're allowed. So the question we asked ourselves was, what does that mom need to go up against the ACLU in that situation? Well, she needed real intelligence. She needed to know what was really going on in that community. She needed to have her own media outlet where she could get her story out. And she needed hands-on legal at the grassroots level. And that's what we put together with Citizens Defending Freedom. And Mike Ferris, I go back to Mike. Mike told us if we could build that, nobody was successful building it at grassroots level at that time. He said, but if you could do it, you will win 9 out of 10 times. And he was wrong. 4.5 years later, we're undefeated. And I mean, over 100.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
We're undefeated, 130. So what's happening, it should be an encouragement for people, is all we have to do is stand our ground. Yeah, right? Just stand firm, show up. And our enemy is so weak when it comes to real people pushing back. They've never had any resistance, really.
No.
So at the local level, you can do that and do it in the spirit of love. And we do it in, we're a Christian organization. We're going to spread the gospel as we go, but we're going to stand firm, put on the full righteousness of God and stand firm in that community. And that's that's CDF. And that later on we formed the Remnant Alliance, which is a system that we work with the local church and the local pastor. It's an educational system. And then that church becomes what we call activated in the sense that they become aware of their community. And our organization connects with that church. And then when they find nefarious things going on, we come with our tools. And I'll close with this. It's sort of like what John Eldredge said in one of his books, a great book he wrote called Moving Mountains. He said, once the church wakes up, it's like we're thrown on the beaches of Normandy as third graders. We don't know how to fight in this war. And it's time to put new wine in new wineskins. So that's what we're doing. This is a spiritual battle. And so what are the tools required to win? And Apostle John was very clear. We need the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, which that means we're active out there in that community, and we have courage. And we provide the people the tools they need to stand firm. That's all we do.
What were you going to say, Bev?
He covered it. The difference in just showing up at a school board meeting and showing up with tools at a school board meeting,
And
showing
training.
up with the support and training and intelligence and knowing what you're talking. Because how do I, in a small community, really know what's going on in the bowels of that, right?
No, it's very
I don't.
hard. Yeah.
And a lot of the parents didn't know what was going on. Some of the school board members, in their defense, they're volunteers. They didn't know.
Sure.
Right? So, and their job is to stay out of litigation and stay out of trouble. And so when the other side is growling and gnarling and they're just, okay, appease. And it's a slippery slope. You just go.
So, we don't think the way our enemy thinks. We're good people. We don't sit around and say,
busy
okay, how can we have a riot and tear down whatever? We don't think that way. Who thinks that way? So it's easy for the enemy to come in and pick us off because, number one, we don't like to fight. Now, we will fight if we have to fight, but we don't like to fight. We're trying to raise our families, trying to run our companies.
Yeah.
We're trying to do good things.
Yeah.
Coach Little League, our church, whatever.
Yes.
These other people don't think that way. They've been trained differently, almost militantly, and we're like lambs going to slaughter. So that's what we saw. There's the contrast. And so what do? We come in with that support mechanism for that American citizen and that pastor that says, we've had enough. We're going to stand for our kingdom.
So what are your measures of success with that?
Oh, that's a great question. The best way to measure is when we have a conflict and we come out the other end winning. So, for example, we had a pastor here in Austin, Texas. The Biden administration had gone after her, claiming he was a part of the Biden bus deal. Remember that
Yes,
case?
of course. That was the case when Kamala Harris came with her supporters
That's right.
during the 2020 campaign.
Yep.
And she was unpopular, not well received
Yeah.
in Texas.
That's exactly
and so
right.
some people drove close to the bus, right, and were honking at the bus.
Yep, that's
and
it.
and there was a protest at one of the rallies. In fact, people were so unhappy, she didn't get out.
That's
Did she?
right.
She didn't
No,
get out of the
yeah.
bus. And
Well,
they kind of followed her, and that made her really mad.
So behind the scenes, the Department of Justice at that time was weaponized, which we've seen over and over again. I think it's over 20 attorneys, Soros grade, I call it attorneys, came after them and several other people. We were involved in that, and bottom line was the jury ruled that they were innocent. They
Yes,
didn't do
I mean,
anything.
that poor pastor, I spoke to him multiple times over that period, and it was insane that they were prosecuting them.
So those are victories. Then I like the quiet victories, Lara. We had one right here in your hometown just recently.
Fredericksburg, Texas.
In Fredericksburg, Texas, where a teacher got in trouble because she showed the inauguration. And
During class.
some parents, during class, civics class, So,
and during her civics class.
some parents complained about that, and the principal took illegal action to discipline this teacher. And so within 24 hours, our legal team got involved, and 48 hours later it was resolved and everything was good. We believe in Matthew 18, even in this realm. If you can solve something, Matthew 18, for those that don't know, you try to go to the individual first and resolve it quietly.
Right.
If it doesn't work, then we kick in the media. We start touting the story. If that doesn't work, you bring in the lawyers. That's the system. This case, everything got settled quietly, and it was done. And so that, to me, are the best victories of all, because that's a testimony of who we are. This is not about saving America. This is about extending the kingdom of God. And how do we do that? A lot of people think you can't be firm and good at the same time, but you can. You can be, look at Christ. He was very compassionate, but he looked at the intent of people's heart. And when it was time to crack the whip, he cracked the whip and ran people out of the temple, and den of robbers, he called them. So you can do both, and that's what we try to be.